So I've been rocking the Pixel Watch as my daily smartwatch of choice ever since the package came in. Shout out to Team Pixel again for the opportunity to go ahead and take a look at the Pixel Watch, the LTE model as well. So shout out to them for that. But like I said, I think I'm ready to go ahead and give some just general impressions. Like I said, you guys know I don't do a ton of smartwatch content. I usually leave that to like the Mike O'Briens, the Galen's Gadgets, but I felt like, since Google was kind enough to send one of these out, I definitely want to at least, throw my hat in the ring and just talk about the things that I personally experienced with this watch. Now, if you're looking for something from the perspective of fitness and health tracking and all that, I'm going to be honest, I tend to turn all that stuff off. My smartwatch, I literally only use for notifications and for like the Google Assistant and things like that, right? Those are the only reasons I even use a smartwatch. I don't do any of the health or fitness stuff. So, like I said, I want to be as forthcoming and transparent as I can. But let's go ahead and talk about the Pixel Watch. First things first, you guys know how we do this. I always cover the things that I like about the product, and then I cover the things that I feel as though the company can do to maybe improve. Maybe we're looking at a, second gen type of thing, but we're going to go ahead and kick things off with the pros. The pros, the pros, the pros. And the first thing I want to talk about has to be the software, right? Has to be the software. Now, I kind of felt like, it was perfectly fine to expect this from Google. Google's always been, well more, way more known for their approach, with their products in terms of their software rather than their hardware. Now, that's not to say that this hardware isn't good. I think that this hardware is great, and we're going to cover that as well. But I honestly think the software is what kind of steals the show for me personally, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and unlock it, and I'll kind of preface this by saying you're gonna hear me talk about the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro quite a bit in this particular kind of impressions because that's the watch that I'm coming from, and it's the only other major Wear OS 3 watch that's on the market. It's really only that, and then this watch, the Pixel Watch. So you're going to hear me reference that device quite a bit. So like I said, this isn't a comparison or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to give some context, right? So like I said, coming from that watch, it kind of reminds me of Samsung software a bit. Generally, it's smooth and it's fine, but there are some times where it can be kind of janky, kind of stuttery, things like that, right? And don't get me wrong, I do love the way that most of the watch faces look. And what I'm about to say is going to be completely subjective, right? It's not going to be fact, but I like the way that things like the watch faces, if you go into Google's menus, it it has that same kind of, and I'll hold this closer. It kind of has that same kind of like UI language that we got with Android 12 and the whole, Material U theming and things like that. Like it reminds me of that, but for watches. And in all honesty, I think that that's exactly what we should expect from a Wear OS smartwatch is, the way that the operating system looks on the phones, just shrunken down for a watch, right? So, like I said, shout out to Google for that in regards to their software. Also, kind of branching off of that and talking about the fluidity, the watch absolutely runs like a dream. Now, there are some times where I notice that it's like, and I won't say a little stuttery or a little janky because it's not stuttery or janky, but like I'll click on something and it'll take just half a second, to launch into it or whatever the case may be. But like I said, moving throughout the operating system, it feels super smooth and super fluid. It honestly reminds me of the Apple Watch. Now, I will say the Apple Watch is still just ever so slightly more fluid, just a little bit more responsive, especially when you're doing like your race to wake and things like that. Apple Watch is definitely a bit, not a bit. Apple Watch is definitely more responsive in that regard. The animations look a little bit better, but again, this is Google's first time throwing out a watch with this particular OS. Where it's at now, this is fantastic, right? Especially when you have like Samsung, who's made Wear OS watches in the past as well, or not as well, but have made watches in the past with Wear OS. So absolutely love the software experience. I like the watch face. This is the one that I run, which is the half dial. It's the half dial, and they give you three complications. So This is kind of like I said, what I'm rocking. I think it looks really good. It's minimalistic, it's simple. It even kind of matches my watch band, so you kind of have that stormtrooper look. So, like I said, from a design perspective, I absolutely love, from a software perspective, absolutely love the software on the Pixel Watch. Now, speaking of design, because I did kind of mention it, that's where I want to go next, right? I think that this design looks fantastic. I think Google nailed it in terms of the way that the device looks. I don't think anyone, is saying that it looks ugly or whatever. There have been people talking about bezels, but I feel like once you really get the watch and you start using it, you don't even notice the bezels. Like it's one of those things where it's like I knew it was going to be a big deal until we started getting the actual device in hand. The bezels are fine. I haven't even noticed it. I'm only talking about it now because it was such a big deal, right? So from a design perspective, it looks great. Stainless steel on the sides and everything. Your digital crown, nice and responsive. Button is nice and clicky. The side button here, I do wish that that was a bit more tactile. Let me see if I can get it in focus for y'all. But I wish it was just a bit more tactile. Until you like have that muscle memory built for it, you don't. I'm not gonna say you don't know that it's there. You obviously know it's there, but it does sometimes, or not does. It is sometimes a little bit harder to press. Like I said, I don't know if that's like just a me thing or whatever. It definitely could be, but like I said, it just feels a little too flush with the watch. I would have liked it to kind of protrude a bit more, so it's a little bit easier to press. But besides that, like I said, design absolute A1. The band selection, even though it is expensive, is absolute A1 as well. So kudos to Google for those two areas. Now I want to go ahead and switch gears and start talking about some of the cons, some of the things that I want Google to change, Google to fix, whatever the case may be. And we'll pick up right where we left off with design. So I love the way that this watch looks. I just personally wish that Google would have offered a bigger size, right? Some people, and the thing is this, it's going to be totally subjective, first and foremost, whether you feel as though this is too small or not. There are some, major watch manufacturers who make generally smaller watches, and that's understandable, right? But like I said, I'm someone, and you can tell, my wrists are super small, super skinny, and I'll kind of even lift that up a little bit more so y'all can see it looks perfectly fine on my wrist. Like it looks perfectly fine on my wrist. But I would still like the option to go bigger, right? If that's what I choose. I always feel as though having that option or offering the choice is always the better route to go rather than forcing everyone into one size. If you're generally, a larger, size person and your wrists are, thicker than mine, this may not look the best on your wrists, right? So if Google would have offered, multiple sizes, you could have chose whatever one looks, best for your wrist. So I definitely will say with Gen 2 Google, we want a bigger size, right? We want a bigger size. Now you can literally keep the same exact internals and just give us that bigger size. And with that casing, fill it with battery. And that's going to take us into the next thing that I kind of want Google to really take a look at and kind of analyze. And that's the battery, right? Isaiah from the future here. I wanted to add this little quick update. So the Pixel Watch's battery life did get better after about a full week of usage. I'm still not doing any health tracking, sleep tracking, or any of the fitness features. I just don't use those. I have always on display turned on. I have tilt-to-wake turned on, and my watch is paired to an LTE line. So LTE is running as well. And like I said, battery life did get, better after that full week. I don't know if Google's doing like a whole adaptive learning like they do with their phones. So just something to keep in mind that I wanted to add to make sure that you all were aware of. Back to the video. Coming from the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, I'm getting a minimum of 3 days on that watch. 4 days if I'm like, really light on it, right? Maybe 4.5, almost 5. But 3 days is the bare minimum. 3 days is the absolute bare minimum. And with the Pixel Watch, I've definitely had to get like reacquainted with watches of the past where it was like you already knew you were going to be charging that Apple Watch every night. You knew you were going to be charging your Galaxy Watch 4 pretty much every single night. Pixel Watch, you are going to charge this watch every single night. Depending on what features you have turned on and what features you use, you might even end up having to charge it twice in one day, right? I can't say anything definitively because obviously I've only had the watch for about 2 days. I'm not sure if you have to do the whole, let the watch kind of sit and learn your usage and all that stuff. I don't know if it's the same with watches, but I can, talk about, my watch usage for, like I said, the past 2 days or whatever. And like today, for example, I charge it to 100%, maybe about 12. I want to say I took it off the charger about 12 o'clock. And battery life wise, I'm at 29%. So I literally went from 100 at 12 to 29%, and it is 10:49. So we'll round up to 11 o'clock just to give the watch the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, it's gonna last that long, but so 12 to 11, that's what, 11 hours. So I got about 11 hours, and I'm already 29%. Now I do also have LTE activated. And I don't know if just having LTE activated but not actually using LTE will affect your battery life. Like I'm not sure if that's a thing. But in terms of like the fitness stuff, I mean, you can see like the little steps tracker there, my complication. I don't use like workouts and track my walk or run. Like I don't do that. I don't sleep with the watch on. I don't do sleep tracking. I don't do any of those health type features. And like I said, I'm getting this type of battery life. So I can only imagine like the Fitbit enthusiast who comes to this watch and they're getting, even worse battery life, right? So I would definitely say Google next year, battery life has to be a focus. I feel as though minimum of 3 days is where you want to go. People generally don't mind throwing their watch on like a dock or like a little wireless charger or something like that, like, every night or whatever, if they're not sleeping in it. But when you get those, say, like weekend trips, right? Where I have to go away from a Friday, day to Sunday evening, if I have a watch that can last me minimum of 3 days, it'll last me that entire trip and I won't have to bring a charger, right? I don't want to have to continue to add devices to my ecosystem, to my daily carries that I'm going to end up having to bring a charger for. So, like I said, Pixel Watch, it was rumored that reverse wireless charging with your Pixel, could, well, first we heard couldn't work. Then somebody, put it on there and it looked like it was charging, but it really wasn't. So they obviously said that it did work, and now we're finding out that it really doesn't work. It just looks like it's charging. So, like I said, you end up having to carry that proprietary, hockey puck that, we got to put on the back of our watches. So, really just wish that with the next iteration of Pixel Watch, we're looking at massive improvements to the battery. And then the last call out that I want to make about the Pixel Watch has to be the lack of those googly features. Now, let me add some context. I'm not sure if those googly features are, something that we have to have, say, Tensor for, right? Like the faster voice dictation and like, hold for me, call screen. Now, I know a lot of those like call screen features, hold for me features, those are on older Pixels, like Pixel 5s and things like that. So I know those don't need Tensor, but the voice dictation, that might need Tensor. So I'm not sure if we have to look for, Google to do, say, a custom version of this processor so we can get that faster voice dictation. We can get like call screen. Those are features that I kind of assumed having a Pixel Watch that would be on the watch itself, right? So I'm not sure if we're in a situation where we're just waiting for more software updates to come out. I know there are some features that they talked about, like being able to unlock your phone, with having your watch next to it. Those are set to come out later this year, if I'm not mistaken. So, like I said, there are some things coming in the pipeline, but I found that lack of googly features kind of disappointing, right? In my opinion, besides the look being, Googled through and through, there's nothing different about this watch that, is different from what the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro can give you, right? And I think that those pixely exclusive features would have definitely set this watch apart. One of the things about, the Pixel phone series is it doesn't try to beat Samsung and Apple and say like raw horsepower or anything like that. It tries to beat those devices by being smarter. I want to see Google's watch take that same approach. Don't try to beat, the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro or, the Apple Watch Ultra by just brute force. Beat them by being smarter, by offering features that are just, like I said, to the point where it's almost like we're using a real world assistant, right? A real life secretary. So Google, I'm not sure what it will take to get those features in. just add them to the watch. Just add them 100% to the watch. I know some people are going to disagree with me and say those features, if you get it on the watch, it should come with all Android phones. I highly disagree with that. I'm fine with manufacturers having their own exclusive features and exclusive, ecosystems and things like that, because that's, those companies being different is the reason why you would choose one over the other. So I'm fine with Google having, say, call screen and the faster voice dictation available if you sync it with a Pixel or something like that. Again, I know a lot of people are gonna disagree with me, but again, I feel like it's perfectly fine for all manufacturers to have those features that you have to go to them to buy, right? If you want the better multi-window experience, the more productivity driven focused mobile experience, well, Samsung has that. If you want iMessage, FaceTime, the ecosystem into the rest of Apple's products, you got to go get the iPhone. It's okay for Google to have some of those features too, right? So overall, those are the things that I wanted to call out. What I will say is I know it seems like I did have a lot to kind of put in like the negative column for the Pixel Watch, but I love this watch. And I think for a first gen product, I think Google did a great job. I haven't had any issues with, say, like stability or things not working correctly. I think the best praise I can give it is I just set it up and threw it on my wrist and everything was fine, right? I didn't have any issues, no bugs. And I know that this is a lot simpler than a phone, but still, for this to be a first gen product, this is fantastic. Google, you did a great job. Focus on those areas that I talked about here in this video for the second gen, or maybe even software updates if that's possible. And I'm telling you, it won't even be a conversation, right? It won't even be a conversation. Pixel Watch will definitely be a competitor to, say, like the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro and the Apple Watch Ultras of the world, right? So with that being said, let me know what you all think down in the comment section down below. What do you think of Pixel Watch? Do you think it is a hit? Do you think it's a miss? Let me know. I want to know down in the comment section below. But as always, this is Ike's Tech Talk. I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.